Good morning, everybody. So, I just got through seeing the teacher that was in his class on Halloween. He decided to do blackface, and he was trying to be Common, the rapper, MC, actor, innovator, spokesperson for Microsoft. Somebody that I've always admired and appreciated his music for a long time. You know what I mean? Followed him for a long time. In fact, I remember once when I was in college, um, I wrote an essay on him. Sat there for like 3 hours and wrote an essay on his music and on some of the things that he talked about. Dug up some history on him, and you know what I mean. It was all a positive thing, and turned out after I finished the essay, when I was trying to put the finishing touches on it, it turned out it was his birthday. It was literally the man's birthday, and it was just a very, very fortuitous and very interesting thing how I spent all day long working on the man's essay, but turns out to be his birthday anyway. This guy, teacher, I guess he was, he's a science teacher of some sort, and he was talking about artificial intelligence, and basically he was saying it's millions of people on Earth. What will you do with AI? And I laughed. I ain't gonna lie to you guys. I laughed as a black bald headed dude. I laughed because the way he said AI literally sounded like Common. For somebody who's been listening to Common since he was a kid, that's exactly how he says the word AI. I laughed at it, but nothing else about the situation was funny. Whether he meant to be insensitive, or he meant to be funny, or he meant to be serious, it was not intended to be funny. I just found it to be funny how he was trying so hard to sound like Common when he said that particular thing, and he pulled it off. But I have to say, you guys, and I know I have a lot of people who watch me, and I have a lot of different takes on a lot of different things. Blackface is not anything to play with, okay? African Americans are very, very offended by blackface. We don't like seeing white people or non-black people basically put on black skin. And it's not just because we are just sensitive in that way. It's because of the history and the connotations that it holds. Blackface back in the past was something that was used to belittle us in comedy. A lot of times white comics would get on stage in the early teens, I think, early 20s. I believe this is when this took place, 30s, where they would get on stage, or, it was stage, definitely wasn't television, but it bled into television after a while when black and whites and TV was a thing and all of that. But they would get on stage and put black makeup on their face, and they would make their lips bright red, blood red, and then they would get up there and sing songs like Negro spirituals and say stuff like "mammy" and "pappy" and all kinds of stuff, and it was just very hurtful to us, very, very hurtful to my people. So I understand and agree with the fact that he should be fired, suspended, reprimanded for this, whether he understood it or not, just simply because we have to deter this behavior, whether it's Halloween or not. The reality is, this is something that we are very sensitive to. This is something that we've been sensitive to before this era, where sensitivity was oversaturated and overshown, basically, is what I'm trying to say. It's been something that's been on our minds and in our hearts for a long time. And we ask that people respect it, no different than we ask that you don't say the N-word, don't call us pickaninnies, don't call us all kinds of different horrible names that have been historically used to put us down and kick us to the curb. So while I got up here and laughed, personally, I understand why others won't. I understand why it should be considered serious, and I understand why it's important for us as black people to continue to remind people of what it is that offends us. Because there are a lot of us who will act violently when we feel offended. And if you have people in your life who are not prepared for that type of response, or not aware of how serious we take certain offenses, they can find themselves on the wrong end of a violent situation. Or on the wrong end of getting in trouble and losing their jobs, obviously. And you throw your whole life away, white people, when you make fun of black people in a professional setting. It's been like that for a little bit now, but you really do throw away your whole career. You put yourself in a position to be hated, to be called a racist, even when your intentions are not to offend, even when your intentions are not to, extend anger or hatred or try to bring that out of us, it's still going to be treated just the same because of how awful and how long these offenses have been taken to place, have been exposed and have been used by white people in this country and abroad in some cases. Race relations. I would love to wake up in the morning and say we're past that, but I don't think it works that way, and I don't believe that it will work that way for some time. Especially since certain offenses and certain things are still taking place that we feel like we're being ignored about, and feel like we're being silenced, and feel like we're being pushed aside to this very second. Once that behavior ends, once we feel like we're being treated properly, then we can stop being sensitive to certain things such as these. But as long as there are things that are still going on, we're still going to be very, very, very offended by certain things done, particularly by Caucasian American people. The world ain't perfect, you guys. It's just not. And, I don't find myself as offended in this particular situation because I laughed at it. I got a lot of laughter out of that situation. I really did. I thought it was funny. But I can understand and I can agree with those who don't, because I know the history behind the blackface. So I encourage everybody to, if you care, because a lot of people just don't care, but I encourage you, if you're not aware of what I've just expressed to you in regards to blackface and the history, go check it out, man. Go look up the word blackface, Google it, do your YouTube searches, and learn about that era. There was a movie called Bamboozled that came out, I believe, in the late 90s, a Spike Lee joint that really, really zeroed in on that culture and really zeroed in on how much pain it caused African Americans to have gone through so much of that teasing and so much of that offensive energy, and how much money was generated for those comics and for those offensive people in the name of using blackface. Minstrel shows is what they called them, and they were very, very popular. So yeah, do your homework if you care. I think information saves us all at the end of the day. It really does. When you understand the history of something, you know why you shouldn't do it. It's not just about today. It's about what happened beforehand and why people are so sensitive about a lot of things. And that doesn't go just for my culture. It goes for just in every instance when we find ourselves ignorant or find ourselves insensitive. Information will heal you from your ignorance. And so I need to practice that in regards to a lot of different things. And this is just yet another reminder that that is upon me to do the same in regards to other people's cultures as well. With that being said, I want to also say something about sports teams who refuse to let go of their offensive names. The Washington Redskins. I've never been offended by the Washington Redskins name because, quite frankly, it's always been that way. They've always been the Redskins, just like the Cleveland Indians. They've always been the Cleveland Indians. And as somebody who has a lot of Native American blood in him, it just didn't push me that way. But there are people out there who are Native American who are asking that this name be changed, these names be changed. I haven't heard anyone complain about the Blackhawks, the Chicago Blackhawks. I don't think so. But it's one of those things where if a person doesn't feel like they're being tributed, if it's not a tribute to their culture, and it more so extenuates the insulting and the bad treatment that they've endured. Cleveland Indians, the Indians were not Indians, obviously. Settlers who came here thought they were going to India, could not accept the fact that they didn't land on India, and called the natives here Indians, and that's why that name is carried. Those people were never Indians. So I think the Cleveland Indians should change their name. I know a lot of fans call them the Cleveland Tribe. I have a good friend who loves her team. They're the Tribe to her. She doesn't really call them the Indians. They're the Tribe. It's fine. I mean, that's a team that's been around since forever. Like baseball, it's baseball. It's been around forever. But I think it's time we start being sensitive to the feelings of others. And the Washington Redskins, they've been unapologetic. The owner's been unapologetic about that name, and it's obviously very offensive to a lot of people. So I would just encourage, especially the NFL and the MLB, to really consider what it means going forward to continue on this path of being insensitive and profiting off of what some would say is insensitive energy. Um, just doesn't seem like it's appropriate. No different than having blackface. No different than some of these other things that we make fun of in different cultures that I don't even want to bring up because of what it brings to the table. So while I may not be as offended as some, that does not mean that I shouldn't stand here and say, yo, we need to just simply not. Anyway, yeah, culture is important, man. People have their hearts and their lives and their history and their families wrapped up in their cultures. And a lot of times when you're outside of those cultures, all you see is jokes and stereotypes and things of that nature. You may not feel as, like myself, you don't feel as offended in certain instances, so you don't feel like others should be offended as well about whatever it is that they seem to be offended by. And that's just ignorant. You're not the center of your own universe. I'm not the center of mine. Just because I'm callous to certain things that maybe some are, or maybe more sensitive to certain things that others may not be, does not mean that my standards are the standards for everyone. And we got to hold ourselves responsible if we want to have good names in this world. We got to hold ourselves responsible if we want people to take us as seriously as we take ourselves. Part of self-awareness is understanding that you are not the end-all be-all, the center of the universe, the only person that matters. And I guess I'll leave it at that. Thank you guys for watching BDF 44, and I'm out.